Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. So excited to be with you all. So, I wanted to share an epiphany I had recently. And the epiphany I had was that I realized God forbid, if I had to make a choice between which item I would want stolen off of me, God forbid, it would be easier for me to actually have my wallet stolen than to have my phone stolen. And the reason is I realized that the phone has become such a necessary and integral part of day to day living now. I use my phone to pay my bills, to order food, to shop, to make appointments, to hail rides, to figure out the Qibla when I want to pray, to figure out the prayer timings. I use it as my calendar. I use it as my calculator, my camera, my compass, my flashlight. I mean, the phone is now used for pretty much every aspect of our lives, and it's amazing what a blessing this little device has become for so many of us. I'm even using my phone right now to conduct this webinar, mashallah. And with every blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends our way, there's also tests and tribulations and trials that come with it. And we're still in a phase where we're collecting the data and the research is still happening to figure out how phones actually are affecting our neurological development, our physical development, our emotional, our psychological, especially with children growing up. People are wondering what connection phones are having, even with Alzheimer's now in old age. So there's a lot of data that's still being collected, and we're kind of still the guinea pigs in the process. The smartphone only came out back in 2007. So there's a lot to discuss. I'm not going to be able to do a deep dive into any one topic. And I know there are parents out there who have children at different stages of life, at different ages. So we're going to touch on different aspects of parenthood when it comes to being surrounded by screens. And for the purpose of today's discussion, screens is going to include tablets, smartphones, the computer screen, the television screen, right? There's like a lot of screens in our lives right now, mashallah. So we're going to try and touch on all of them. And I guess the realization now is that we can't be Luddites, right? Luddites are the people who just completely eschew technology, say we want nothing to do with it. It's pretty much become a part of day to day living. So when it comes to parenting, uh, it all starts with ourselves. And there's a quote that I read about recently with a discussion that happened with Ibn Khaldun. And Ibn Khaldun was asked, how should we educate our children? And his response was, do not strive to educate your children, for they will naturally mirror your character. Just focus on educating yourself. Just focus on educating yourself. And what that means is that we need to sort out our own relationships with screens before we can teach our children anything. And so an interesting experiment that I wanted to share with you guys, and I hope people will Google this on their own and research it and look it up, is an experiment that was called the stillface experiment. It happened in 1978, and it taught us a lot about the relationship between infants, babies, and caregivers, care providers. It was this experiment where researchers had a caregiver interact with a baby, with an infant, and the caregiver, for the purpose of this discussion, I'll say a woman, she would coo and giggle and laugh and play peekaboo and talk to the baby, and the baby would respond with excitement, and the caregiver and the baby would mirror each other's reactions back and forth. Then the researchers asked the caregiver to go into what was called a still face, where the caregiver had absolutely no expression. No matter what the baby did, how the baby responded, the caregiver just stayed completely serious and didn't respond to the baby. So, what they wanted to do was they wanted to research and see how babies get affected when the caregiver doesn't have a response and doesn't engage with the infant. And what they saw was that the infants often went into distress. First, they would try to engage with the caregiver on their own. They would try to get their attention. They would try to call out to them. But when they wouldn't get any response, they would either become fretful and anxious, or they would withdraw completely, and they would not make eye contact with the caregiver. They would look away. And a syndrome came about that they realized, which they've named, and you can look this up, stillface syndrome, which is a syndrome that shows up in infants and babies. And some of the signs of stillface syndrome is babies who don't interact with adults, don't smile, don't laugh, don't make eye contact, seem anxious, are fussy if they're left alone even for a minute. So many of us, when we hear about the still face experiment or still face syndrome, we would say, well, I would never do that to a baby. I would never have a baby, laughing or smiling or trying to get my attention. I would never choose to ignore a baby who was trying to do that with me. But the truth is, that still face that those caregivers were giving to the babies in that experiment is pretty much very similar to what happens to our faces when we are engaged on our phones and we have our babies or infants around us who are trying to get our attention. The interaction is very similar to the still face experiment, which again I encourage everybody to look up online. Something to keep in mind, because many of us don't realize the damage that actually can be done when we aren't engaging with our babies who are trying to get our attention. Now, the American Pediatric Association, they have said that their recommendation is that babies should not be interacting with screens for the first 2 years of their lives. So for the first 24 months, babies shouldn't even be around screens. But it's not very realistic that we're going to be able to keep babies away from screens. I saw a video recently of a baby, maybe it's 18 months old, sitting on a bed with a magazine in front of him. And the parents were laughing, they were filming it. And what they were showing was that the baby was looking at the picture on the magazine and then going like this, trying to swipe the picture because they thought that's what you do, even to a paper magazine. So babies are like coming out of the womb, pretty much knowing how to interact with screens, right? Or not knowing how to, but are already like aware of having screens in their circumference on their radar. So so those of you who have babies and infants are going to have to be really, really aware of your own phone usage around them and have some guidelines in place. One product that I want to tell everybody about that I know many young parents are using these days, and some people may not know about it. It's something called getbrick.app. Get Brick, GETBRICK .app. Again, I'm not going to be able to do a deep dive into it, but I want to encourage people to look it up on their own. Those of you who have infants and babies and maybe realize that they get distracted by their phone quite a bit and take their attention away from their children. So go ahead and look up getbrick.app. On Amazon, I saw a product, believe it or not. It's a phone holder and it looks ironically like a claw, kind of like a spider gripping a phone. And this phone, they say, is meant to be put on top of the car seat carrier, the baby carrier. So the handle of the car seat, they would put the phone there so that the baby can lie in the car seat looking up at the screen. And it can also be put, they showed in pictures, a playmat mobile, playmat that babies are lied down on, and then the mobile is on top with the toys dangling down. So they put the phone holder up there, ironically sold by a company called Demon, Demon, which I thought was interesting. But this phone looking down on the baby. And what they have in the pictures on Amazon to show the advertising is they have grandparents looking down at the baby, interacting with the baby. But when I was reading the reviews of this product, I read review after review of parents saying, my 6-month-old loves watching his cartoons in the car when we go on drives and it keeps him busy. Or my 8-month-old loves watching, music videos on this product that's being sold on Amazon. So it's not necessarily just being used to interact with grandparents. It's being used as a means of pacifying, babysitting, stopping babies from having tantrums, keeping them busy. it's being used in a way that the American Pediatric Association does not recommend. So please keep that in mind. If you're going to have your under 24-month-old baby interacting with screens, it really should be used mindfully only to interact with relatives or loved ones that they are not able to see in person. So maybe grandparents are on the other side of the globe, or parents who are on a business trip who want to talk to their baby. So that's what we'll share with when it comes to infancy. Okay, here are some guidelines now going into the elementary years, the elementary school years. So children ages 2 to 5 should have no more than 1 hour of educational programming, preferably less per day. So set a timer for yourself of how much you allow your child to be on the phone, but ideally it should be less than 1 hour and it should be educational programming. Other guidelines include that you should be turning off your screens during family meals and outings. Everybody should be putting their phones away. Um, 1 hour before bedtime, all screens should be turned off. The age of 6 is the age of family responsibility. Age 6 is the time that children can be given small, lists of chores that they can do. They can be told that they need to water the plants weekly, or maybe they have to feed the pet cat, or maybe they have to make sure the front door is locked before they go to bed. Little chores, they can help unload the dishwasher, giving children at the age of 6 a sense of responsibility around the home, so that they are realizing that they're an important part of the family and an important member of the family, and it makes them feel that they're growing up, right? Many children feel that being on screens is the sign that they're growing up, that when they get their first phone, when they get their first social media account, when they're able to be trusted to be alone with the phone. So these are little things how at age 6, instead of just handing your kid a phone, these are ways that you can help children feel that they're actually part of the family and they are growing up. All right, going into the older years, elementary school years, what we're seeing now is that what used to be a play-based childhood has been replaced with a phone-based childhood. More and more kids are now staying inside and they're staying on their phones. I went to a picnic a little while ago where moms were setting up food and games and doing this beautiful job of setting up fun for the children, and I saw this little girl off to the corner on an iPhone in a park, and she was on the iPhone watching videos, cartoons, and the mom was actually busy setting up for the picnic, and this was something she was using to pacify her child, keep her busy so that she wouldn't be running underfoot. But the child was in a playground, and the child should have been actually up on play structures playing, right? So that's another thing to keep in mind, that how are we using the phone, right? Are we using the phone just to babysit and to pacify and to make our own lives easier? Because this is going to take work for ourselves too. It's going to take making hard choices that we may not want to make because it makes our lives easier to have kids on phones. So, by age 8, this is another thing. Parents now are, mashallah, I think because we get instant news on our screens, parents now have started feeling very fretful and very scared of everything, right? They think their kids are going to be susceptible to pretty much every kind of disaster that can happen out there because they're hearing about every single disaster that's happening in the world. But by age 8, those of you who have 8-year-olds, I would really encourage that you get your children to feel confident enough to be able to walk to a local store or to the local school in a group. When I was 5 years old, I was walking to kindergarten with the neighborhood kids without my parents. And the world actually hasn't changed that much as technology wise it has, but as far as the ability of what children are able to do, it hasn't actually changed that much. And so we need to be giving our children the confidence and making them feel that we trust them, because a lot that I hear from older kids when it comes to screen time is they say, my parents don't trust me, my parents just don't think I can handle anything. So along the way of them growing up, you want to give them these responsibilities and this growing independence so that they realize you do trust them and you do believe in them and you do have confidence in them. If you have confidence in them, they will have confidence in themselves. Another thing is that you want to provide a clear structure for the day and for the week. You want to have a schedule so that downtime isn't just automatically being spent, that it has to be on a gadget or on a device. No smartphones until high school. That's my recommendation. When my kids, who are now all in their 20s and out of the home now, mashallah, when they were in high school, they all had flip phones. And one of my sons told me that kids in his high school would actually take pictures of his flip phone because they were so fascinated with it because it was such a vintage product. They hadn't even seen that before. But now, actually, if you Google about flip phones, they're called minimalist phones now. People are actually wanting to go back to flip phones, some people, because they want to minimize distractions in their lives. Um, so all of our boys were told that the day they graduate from high school, they'll get the latest iPhone. So that was our rule with our kids. I know a lot has changed since my boys were in high school. Now, believe it or not, there are actually smartphones out there that are dumb phones. They're called lockdown phones. They look like Samsungs, they look like iPhones, but and they operate like Samsungs and iPhones, so your kid doesn't have to feel like they have the weird old-fashioned phone when they're around their friends, but the phone actually has very limited things that they're able to do. They can take pictures, they can text, they can only add the contacts that their parents allow them to add. The only people who can text them or call them are the people who are in those contacts. The parents are able to track them where they are. So it's a phone now that, kind of helps kids find a middle ground with their parents. And I'm going to be giving names of products that you guys can look up for your children and decide what works best for you. So, when it comes to parenting, what we want to do is we want to be more like gardeners instead of carpenters. The idea of a carpenter is that you build and you form, right? Like what you want, the end product, what you want. You're the one hammering away working on it. But the idea of a carpenter is that you are planting seeds and you're nurturing those seeds and you're watering those seeds and you're giving a healthy environment in which that seed can sprout and grow in the right direction. And that is what we want to be with our children, which is being gardeners and helping them to know how to navigate the world of screens. So now going into the older years, um, when it comes to the ages of 9 to 15, I want to share this too because this is what's really, really important. It's the most sensitive period for cultural learning. It's 9 to 15. That is the time when your kids are going to be forming their identities, they're going to be learning their lessons, you're going to be getting your voice into their head, and whatever the norm is around them is going to become their world. And these are the crucial, sensitive years of puberty. And unfortunately, these are also the years when most adolescents get their own phones and then they move their social lives online. So you want to hold off as much as possible and give them real world engagement so that they can have your culture, your world be their norm before they have to go out into the broader world and decide for themselves what they accept and what they reject. And believe me, they will. I was just talking to one of my high school halakha students yesterday who told me she's been really eager to get a phone of her own. But over the weekend, she hung out with a bunch of teenagers her age who do have their own phones. And she realized that the conversations the other teenagers were having, which was based a lot on what they saw on social media, made her realize that she was really grateful that she had been kept away from smartphones and social media all this time because she felt that she had deeper, more interesting, more important things to talk about, right? Things like ideas, things like events, things like history and literature, instead of just what celebrities are doing or what people are doing or what the latest scandal is. Kids will realize the benefits later, but when they're younger, in the ages of like 9 to 15, it's much harder for them to filter it out. So we have to be the ones who are being the guardians for them. So I want to talk to you guys a little bit about how we can talk to our children about the things that they are seeing on on the screens, and the things that they're going to be exposed to. And one of the things that probably the most important piece of advice that I can give parents, and I say this again and again and again, and I never tire of it because I think it's really important for parents to hear this, is that you cannot leave your children alone with internet enabled devices in the privacy of their bedrooms. So, no internet privacy. At some point when they're older, yes, they will have their own lives online and on phones, and you will not be in control. But when they are in your home and they are, in those crucial years up till the age of 15, you cannot give internet privacy. So, the internet needs to be used in a public space, and the internet needs to be treated like a loaded weapon. And that's the best analogy I can give you. So, how do you treat a loaded weapon? You know where it is at all times. You keep it under lock and key. You teach children how to use it safely. You're aware of how it's used in other people's homes. So, if your kids are going for sleepovers to other people's homes, you know what, the internet usage is like there, what kind of access the children have to it. The ages 10 to 12 are the years in which most pornography exposure happens. And it is the time when most kids stumble across it. It's not a matter of if your children come across pornography, it's a matter of when. And so you have to be prepared for it. And so in the early years, it's about avoiding and protecting and guarding, right? Later years, when the kids are on the internet and doing research and maybe going to the library and using it, you have to talk to your kids about what to do if they ever come across it. And the main things you tell your children is that you turn away, you look away, and you say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Those are the main first two steps that the kids have to do. When they're younger, you have to tell them that the third step is that they need to come tell you so that you can put the proper protections in place. When they're older, I can pretty much guarantee you they're not going to come and tell you. So you have to give them the tools of what they need to do if they ever come across it. Most kids don't seek it out, they stumble across it. And there's a lot of tricks out there to get kids to fall into the trap of pornography. Kids will first start out with coming across it accidentally. Then there's going to be curiosity about, well, what is this? Then there's going to be like checking in to see if it's still there and if they can still access it. Then it's going to become a pattern of accessing it. And then after it becomes a pattern, it eventually becomes a compulsion or an addiction. And all of our children out there who are on the internet are at some point of that journey. You just don't know where. And so you have to be talking to your kids about what they need to do if they ever come across it. And so there's some different ways to talk to your children when it comes to spiritual terms, spiritual language. One of the things I used to like to talk to my kids and my students about is I would talk to them about the spiritual heart. And I would tell them about how every single one of us is born with a tiny black spot on our hearts. And that spot grows over time, right? And that spot grows with every sin that we commit. And the way we get rid of that spot that grows and covers our heart and eventually causes it to rust is by doing tawbah, is by repenting and asking Allah to forgive us. And then every time we repent and every time Allah accepts our repentance, that black spot decreases. And so that is what life is made up of. Life is made up of making mistakes, asking Allah to forgive you, and remembering Him and turning to Him and not despairing, right? And eventually trying to get our hearts to be pure, inshallah, and coming to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with a pure heart. And I used to talk to the kids about how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we tell the children about the seerah how the Prophet ﷺ had a tiny black spot on his heart, but the angels came and opened his chest. We know that story in the Sira, and they removed that black spot from his heart. So all of us have that black spot in our hearts that is growing and decreasing over time based on our actions. So allowing the children to visualize that, and then teaching them that, on the day of judgment, we want to come to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with pure hearts, with clean hearts. And so the heart is treated like a fortress, right? Like a castle that we need to protect. And there are 7 inroads to the heart, 7 ways that shaitan will access your heart. And those 7 ways are the eyes, the ears, the mouth, the hands, the feet, the stomach, and the genitalia, our private parts. And each one of those inroads is a way for shaitan to enter and affect our hearts. And so, for the purpose of today's discussion, we're talking about the eyes. How do you use your eyes? What are you allowing to come into your eyes that then is now going to be affecting your heart? And one of my sons told me that something that really affected him was he was once in a dars, and the sheikh who was speaking said that Iman is pulled out of the eyes. Iman, your faith, is pulled out of your eyes. And he said that that one sentence really freaked him out and really had an effect on him. Another thing that will work with some children, but not with all, but it is an important thing to teach our children, is to remind them that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with you, right? As long as you're remembering him and you're thinking about him, that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about himself, that I am with my servant, right? As long as his 2 lips are moving in remembrance of me. And so we want to make sure our kids understand that we're not always going to be with them. We're not always going to be watching over them. We're not always going to be tracking them or checking up on them, right? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with them. And so you want them to look, you want to teach your children how to listen to that internal voice that is telling them that, hey, you're not alone. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with you. And is this something you want to be doing right now? And how is this going to be affecting your heart? The other thing that I used to like to teach my children and my students is that all thoughts that come to you come from one of 4 sources, right? Every single thought you have comes from one of 4 sources. And you need to think about, where are your thoughts coming from? So your thoughts are either coming from Allah, or they're coming from the angels, or they're coming from your ego, your nafs, or they're coming from shaitan, the devil. And so you have to look at, if you act out on this action that you want to do, who wins? Who benefits in the end, right? And if it's shaitan who's benefiting, then you know where that thought is coming from. So if your thought is telling you, go ahead, watch that thing, nobody's with you, nobody sees you, who wins, right? Who benefits? And so this is just some of the spiritual language that you can use to help your children understand about how what they're seeing on screens affects them. Um, the other thing is, our Deen has certain things in place that really, really help us when it comes to um, controlling our desires or controlling falling full headed, down this rabbit hole of social media and phone addictions. So one is prayer in congregation, prayer on time. So the virtual world gives no structure to time and space. Once you are online, once you're on social media, once you're chatting with people on your phone, it is really easy to lose track of time and space, and it's disembodied, and most of its activities are conducted asynchronously, right? There's like no connection to anybody, like physically. So we want to teach our children about the value of time and reminding them that the 5 prayers take time, take place on time, and praying with each other. And these are times that we're disconnected from our gadgets and our devices and our phones. Another thing in our religion that's built in there is dhikr, right? Sitting and doing our litanies, sitting and doing our wird, remembering Allah, saying subhanallah, saying alhamdulillah, saying astaghfirullah. Dhikr encourages stillness It encourages silence. It encourages meditation. It forces us to take a break from distractions. So, along with the five prayers, we definitely want to be bringing in time for dhikr. The outlook of our religion, our Deen, is that it advises us to be hard on ourselves and easy on other people. Usually it's the opposite. We tend to be hard on other people and easy on ourselves. But religion teaches us to be less judgmental. It teaches us to be slow to anger. It teaches us to be quick to forgive. And it teaches us to value time. Everything I just listed here, social media, being on your phone teaches the opposite, right? It teaches you to be rude. It teaches you to get angry quickly. It teaches you to waste time. It teaches you to judge people. Completely the opposite. The other thing our religion teaches us is the concept of subhanallah, just going out and reflecting on the world around us and just being enamored with the beauty that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put in the world and having a sense of awe for what we see around us. So, it's going to be important to disconnect from our devices and get out in nature, go camping, you know, um, have our children out playing on the streets, riding their bikes, interacting with neighbors and friends, making sure that a lot of their socializing is happening in the real world and not happening on phones. And so, and our religion is a religion of being with people, right? It's not a religion of being isolated. So making sure that our kids are connected with the community. Okay, I'm talking really quickly because there's so much to cover and such little time, mashallah. And I was already really sad that I joined 5 minutes late by mistake. And so I want to make sure that I'm covering everything that. Okay, so in the teen years, um, some things that are really important in the teen years is going to be getting your kids involved in sports, getting them either, doing jujitsu or being on, a tennis team or being on a volleyball team, getting them out in nature, outside, using their physical bodies. It's going to be important to encourage them to get part-time jobs. In the teen years, it's really important to have mentors, adults who are not just the parents. So getting them to have role models in the community. Make sure, this is a really important piece of advice. Make sure that um, you're playing the video games your children are playing. So you should know what video games your children are playing and what values are being taught in those video games. Because believe it or not, even video games teach values. I haven't done that much research on the latest video games, but I remember a few years ago when it was Grand Theft Auto was the big game. I don't know if it still is, but Grand Theft Auto does something that Dr. Leonard Sachs calls moral inversion, which is everything in society, everything that normal people know as haram and harmful and sinful and criminal, everything that's evil in that game, those things, if you do those things, you will actually get points for it, right? So there's some games out there that they do what's called moral inversion. I'm not going to go into the details right now on Grand Theft Auto, what they have you do in order to get points. But if you know about Grand Theft Auto, you know what I'm talking about. So you want to play the video games that your kids are that your kids are playing so that you know what they're learning and what they're being encouraged to believe and think. Age 14 is the time when kids should be encouraged to work for pay. They can offer to babysit, they can offer to wash people's windows, they can offer to mow lawns. There's a lot of different jobs out there that kids can do for which they can be earning money and feeling a sense of responsibility. At home, you should be relying on your teens more. Teenage years are also the time when you want to start increasing their mobility. Again, we tend to infantilize our kids for way too long and think they can't take on responsibilities. I think at age 14, 15, you should be teaching your kids how to use the local bus system, how to use the subway system, get on their bikes and ride outside of their neighborhoods. Um, if it's possible for them to take a train ride somewhere, encouraging them to learn how to take the train on their own. They should be learning how to get out of your orbit and inshallah come back safely. Know the difference. Parents should know the difference between allowing your children to watch videos like Instagram and TikTok videos on a browser and allowing them to open their own social media accounts. You want to wait and hold off on opening social media accounts until they're like 15, 16. The legal age right now is 13 to open a social media account, but I'm convinced that just like doctors used to smoke in front of their patients in the 1940s and 1950s, and just like doctors would even, encourage their patients to smoke in order to relax, and now we have a completely different understanding and attitude towards smoking, and we can't believe there was ever a time that it was allowed. I'm convinced that inshallah there will come a time when we will look at this day and age and be like, how did we ever allow our children on social media at the age of 13? I even think 15 is still too young, but I know it's really hard for many parents to hold off. So, um, so I will, you know, enc- encourage you to hold off until the age of 15. But what I want to share with you right now is this contract that my brother-in-law, he's an attorney, and my brother-in-law came up with this contract of rules that his children, when they were teenagers, had to sign before they could agree to be given Instagram. And the parents would sign the contract and the children would sign the contract. Now their children are older, they're in college, mashallah, and they know how to handle social media. But it's written as a contract, and I'm just going to go through the terms and conditions that he came up with, which I love. And I think it's really important to go over this with your kids. User offspring agrees to make a good intention for using Instagram and endeavor to reflect on that intention every time user offspring uses Instagram. Good intention includes, but is not limited to, the following: keeping in touch with friends and family members, spreading the message of Islam, leading people to do good, reminding people of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his teachings, and teaching or learning something of value. So, going through that list with the children reminds them of what their intentions should be before they get on social media, right? Teaching our children mindfulness, thinking about what am I doing and why am I doing it. Number two, total daily time spent on Instagram by user offspring is not to exceed 30 minutes. For clarification, one day constitutes 12:01 a.m. to 11:59 p.m. So right there, we've got time limits set where the children know that they can't be on their social media for more than 30 minutes per day. Number three, user offspring shall disclose their passwords to parental units in writing in a location designated by parental units. No changes to passwords shall be allowed until parental units are first informed and the new password provided to parental units. So the parents have access and there isn't that internet privacy, right? The parents have access to the social media accounts. Number four, user offspring shall disclose to parental units any and all Instagram accounts. User offspring shall agree to have only one account. Any opening of a second account without parental unit consent shall constitute an immediate breach of this agreement and result in termination of all Instagram accounts. So, no secret secondary accounts. Number five, user offspring must be following, and then the parents have their Instagram accounts, and the parents' Instagram accounts must be following them. So that's another thing I would encourage, that if your kids are on social media, I would encourage, get on social media yourself and follow them and have them follow you, so that social media is a microcosm of our world. So you're going to find out a lot about what's important to your kids by seeing what they post about on social media. Um, Number six, user offspring shall not block, and then the parent's Instagram, from any Instagram stories. Number seven, parental units shall have the right to check the posts of user offspring and user offspring's friends at any time without notice. Number eight, user offspring must unfollow anyone whose posts parental units do not approve of. Number 9, user offspring may not follow celebrities unless specifically authorized in writing by a parental unit. Celebrities shall be defined as actors, singers, athletes, authors, and fashion bloggers. A lot of celebrities publish a lot of problematic content. And so parents need to know who their kids are following and taking on as teachers and role models. Number 10, user offspring shall not like or comment on selfies of the opposite gender. That was something we talked to our kids about when they were younger, that just like you wouldn't go around following girls in real life going thumbs up, telling them they look beautiful, it's not appropriate to do that on social media either. Number 11, user offspring shall not curse. This includes acronyms, abbreviations such as AF and OMFG. I won't go into the details of what those acronyms mean, but just being aware of what kind of language you're using online. Number 12, social media is a microcosm of most people's worlds. They tend to post about those things that are most important to them. Always ask yourself what your posts say about you. Again, getting the kids to think about their intentions. Number 13, try to make your posts to be one that inspire and motivate and benefit and educate others. So again, thinking about why you're on there. Number 14, occasional selfies are fine, but photographs of yourself should not constitute the majority of your feed. And I can truly say this about my nieces and nephews, the children of my brother-in-law. They, mashallah, do not post about themselves. It's really interesting. And number 15, finally, user offspring understand and acknowledge that Instagram is a false reality. People are never as happy, as attractive, as popular, or having as much fun as their posts may lead one to believe. The people worthy of admiring are most likely not even engaged in the world of social media. They are too busy living their lives worth admiring. And then they had the kids sign this. So this contract is a good way of getting your voice into the kids' heads and getting them to understand how to approach the world of social media. There are going to be mistakes made along the way. There are going to be little blips here and there, but um, this is a reality that's in front of us. And if you have children who are choosing after being on social media that they don't want to be, that they want to disengage, consider it a huge blessing, because kids who realize that the real world is out there and it's being lived off screen, um, it's a rarity to see that amongst young people, to have that awareness. Okay, if you want to know if your child has a problematic relationship with social media, here are some signs that you can look for. So, signs of problematic social media usage: it interferes with their daily routines and commitments. They experience strong cravings to check it. They lie or use deception to spend time online. They often choose social media over in person interactions. Social media is preventing them from getting at least 8 hours of quality sleep every night. It's preventing them from engaging in regular physical activity. And they keep using social media even when they have expressed a desire to want to stop. These are all signs that your children are having, God forbid, a problematic relationship with social media. And so you're going to want to intercede and have an intervention. I want to tell you now about some products, some quick things that I want everybody to look into on their own. I don't have time to go into detail here right now. Every parent should be reading this book. It's called The Anxious Generation. It's by Jonathan Haidt. It's The Anxious Generation. It's a New York Times bestseller. It's how the great rewiring of childhood is causing an epidemic of mental illness. And you will see it in children who have a problematic relationship with their phones. You'll see that there's actually, I had it written down. There's 4 foundational harms that you will see in children who have a problematic relationship with their phones. 1 is social deprivation. They won't be socializing with people. 2 is sleep deprivation, which is then you're going to see depression and anxiety. You're going to see lower grades in school. You're going to see, God forbid, accidents happening. You're going to see, irritability in your children, God forbid. Number three is attention fragmentation. So, a sign of good executive mental function and a sign of maturity is being able to stay on task for a long period of time. But when it comes to phones, kids are getting constant notifications and they can't get through the day more than 5 or 10 minutes without getting some kind of notification that takes their attention away. And then the fourth thing is addiction. And these developers of social media apps, they're using very advanced behaviorist techniques to hook our children, right? And to make them into heavy users of their products. And so you're going to see the universal symptoms of withdrawal when you take kids' phones away. You're going to see them having anxiety and irritability and insomnia and dysphoria, which is the opposite of euphoria, which is where they're irritable and anxious, right? So you want to look for those signs to see if, God forbid, your kids have a problematic relationship with phones. Okay, so I already told you about this book, The Anxious Generation. I already told you about getbrick.app. I think I told you about that. Getbrick, GETBRICK.app. Now, here are some phones that you can look into for your teenagers. There's a phone called Gab, GAB, which won't allow internet connection. There's a phone called Pinwheel, Pinwheel. You can text on this phone, you can Google chat, you can WhatsApp, you can call, you can take pictures and videos, but you won't be able to add new apps. You won't be able to play games. You won't be able to add new contacts without your parents knowing. You won't be able to access social media or get on the web. Strangers won't be able to call you on that phone. So that's Pinwheel. Another phone is called Troomi, Troomi. Troomi. Another phone you can look into is Bark, Bark. An internet safety system that I encourage everybody to look into is called, I'm not sure if it's pronounced Griffin or Gryphon. I think it's Griffin Connect, Gryphon, Gryphon Connect. So, Griffin Connect. So these are devices and apps and programs and books that I think, inshallah, are going to help parents out there. And I know I'm running out of time. I know I spoke very quickly. There was a lot I wanted to cover in this short time. I hope anything I shared was a benefit. Inshallah, hopefully during Q&A, we can talk about things in more detail. I'm going to end with a dua now. Oh, and I just want to share this little anecdote from when our children were little. A friend of mine said, that, she said, I really feel, my husband said that he really feels sorry for our children. He says that our kids are always getting the finger from me, that our poor kids, they're always getting the finger from you. And I said to them, my friend said, she said, I said to him, what are you talking? I'm sorry, I said to my friend, what are you talking about giving your kids the finger? What does that mean? And she said, I'm on my phone. And when my kids are trying to talk to me, I'm always going like this. I'm always going, hold on, hold on, hold on. And inshallah, hopefully, we can be more mindful about how we're using our phones and how we're interacting with phones when we're around our own kids, right? Making sure that we engage with them one on one, give them our full undivided attention, and put our phones away when we are around our kids so that they realize that they are of priority with us. And so we're role modeling for them healthy ways to interact with these devices that are not going anywhere. They're just going to be proliferating and increasing in number. And I'm going to end with this dua. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. O Allah, I seek refuge in you from the evil of what you have created and from the evil of every beast, creeping thing, and anything evil. This is a dua in Arabic. I recited it in English right now. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who is allowing this technology to come into our worlds, to come into our lives. And He's the only one who can protect us from it. And He's the one who can teach us how to have a healthy relationship with these devices and these screens. And inshallah, we will open it up now for Q&A, inshallah, if there's time.